Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations in Horror, the podcast. I'm your host, Kevin L. Powers. I'm also the owner operator of Something Wicked Film Festival and events. And welcome to the podcast today. If you've been with us for most of the last 2 years, or just joining us for the first time, I hope you realize that this is a show in which me and a special guest delve deep into different types of horror films, no matter what decade they were produced in or screened in, and no matter what genre or subgenre of the horror genre. The reason being is that we want to be able to give you guys an actual outlook on what us horror fans see in some of the movies out there that are either independently produced or mainstream. A lot of the films that we have done this year have encompassed all of that because last year we kind of stepped away from, or just kind of stick to a small group of films. But now we want to step out and get into all the nitty gritty films that you all love out there. So the film we are going to be discussing today is one of those type of films. It's from 1984, and for a lot of reasons, there are some people who remember it fondly, and then there are some people who have never heard of it. The film happens to be C.H.U.D.
C.H.U.D.
And that one you just heard was Dave Watkins. Thank you, Dave. He's joining me as my special guest for the show today.
And we were talking about C.H.U.D. and not C.H.U.D. 2, Bud the C.H.U.D., right?
Nah, we'll save that one for another podcast. If you're looking for Bud the C.H.U.D., that will be another episode coming up maybe this year.
Yeah.
Right now, we're going to go back to the original one, which was a very interesting film, to say the least. So let's dive deep into this movie. C.H.U.D, cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers, which is what most of us know it as. But
there is something else that it means, but I guess we should hold that back for later to reveal it like they did in the movie. And everyone was like, what?
I kind of like the cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers. And of course, when I saw this in the mid 80s, I used to just say that all the time. And I'm saying this before I let Dave tell his story, because when I saw this, I thought this was the coolest movie ever. And I used to try to tell all my friends, oh man, you need to go see this movie. It's called Cannibalistic Humanoid Underground Dwellers. C.H.U.D. And no one knew.
Did you see it in the theater, or is that?
I did not, but by the time it came out, it was on VHS, and I had some great parents, I have to say. They took me to the video stores like every week. Yeah. Almost like clockwork, and I would always pick up every one of the new releases. Like I would see all the movies before my friends, because my friends and their families weren't that into movies as much as I was, and thankfully my family actually encouraged me.
Yeah, that's cool. They're into it.
Oh yeah. I saw everything when it came out to DVD, or not DVD, but VHS. Yeah. I would be waiting for it. You could even reserve movies at the video stores if you were a good customer, and I used to do that.
I spent a lot of time in the video store looking at the VHS covers, but definitely was able to rent some. But my parents weren't that enthusiastic about them, but I was myself. They weren't like telling me not to get them a lot of times, but this definitely wasn't their favorite types of movies.
I think. Yeah, but that's kind of like that's how I saw C.H.U.D. I saw C.H.U.D when it first came out. That was one of those cool movies because and everyone out there knows I'm a big monster kid, and these were monsters, and I love the shit out of them. I may not have understood at the time that they were really just the homeless people radiated. I just thought they were cool monsters that lived underground.
Yeah, they're definitely monsters, though.
So, what about you, Dave? What were your first impressions of this movie?
It's weird. I don't remember exactly when I saw this in the circumstances. I'm pretty sure I saw it just on television, and I probably taped it off of television. I know I've saw it more than one time, but I'm not as enthusiastic about it as you were, but I think I did like it from what I remember. And I really remember, it's funny because the version I saw here is not the same version of the film that I saw when I was younger, because I remember the way it was edited originally, probably more effectively. But the ending, and I don't know, which one did you see? Did you see the director's cut or the original theatrical version?
I have never seen the director's cut until we just discussed right before the show. I never even knew there was a director's cut.
Did you? So you, but did you see the director's cut,
No.
or because like if you go on like Amazon Prime, for instance, it's the director's cut.
Uh,
Um, but and I also have an Arrow release of it that I didn't realize. There's actually two Arrow releases. One of them has both versions in it, but this one has the director's cut, and it's got like the. I guess we'll talk about the ending eventually, but it is edited differently in the
oh,
director's cut than the ending. The ending's different. Like
interesting.
yeah.
My sorry,
Well, yeah,
guys.
like John Goodman is in the original last scene of the film, right? The one you remember.
No. Well, he's only for my when I rewatched it, my version, he's only in the scene, I believe, when they're in when the monsters attack the restaurant.
Right, right. Which was in the theatrical version. That was the last scene of the film.
No,
Yeah.
that's
That's the one. I don't know. When I saw it on television, that was the last scene, and it's like weird that they moved that scene. The producers did it because they wanted the ending to be open at the end rather than have it like a closed ending, so they could do a sequel to the film.
actually, I do think that that's how I originally saw it. Now, I did not watch my DVD version of it. I ended up watching it off of Tubi, and that scene is not at the end. The scene is partway through the movie.
I saw this. Yeah, that's the way it was when I saw it. Now I saw this film. I know it was after Home Alone came out because I recognized there were two actors from Home Alone in it, and there's actually like John Hurd plays. He's top billed, and Daniel Stern.
Daniel Stern.
John Stern played like Kevin McAllister's dad, and Daniel Stern played one of the burglars. So
Mhm.
it was probably around 1990 or so when I saw this film, I would think, because I think Home Alone came out in '88. But I did like that. I think the acting is really good in this film for what the type of movie it is and for the time frame that it is. Having those actors in, especially Daniel Stern, does a really
Yeah,
good job in it.
yeah. He is
Um,
not. He does not play this for a comedy at all. He's yeah. So for everyone out there who may or may not have seen this film, Daniel Stern's character, which I can't think of his name for the life of me, I have it written
the,
down.
the name's AJ, the Reverend Shepherd. I
Shepard.
think
So Shepard.
does he go by Shepherd most of the time? I
Yeah,
think he does.
it
Yeah.
goes by Shepard. So he and Bosch, who is the police officer, the main police officer in this film, have a history with one another. We don't actually know all of the history, but we know they have a history. And the fact that Bosch goes to Shepard is very telling because he thinks that the Reverend Shepard it has a new what do you call it gig or a scam, but he doesn't. Shepard actually is very genuine as this reverend who takes care of the homeless people and the underground people.
I think Reverend is not. It's just a nickname. He's not really
It's
a
a nickname.
Reverend because he's actually wearing like a cut off T-shirt and he's all dirty. He looks like a homeless person
He looks
most of
like
the
a homeless
movie.
person.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
he looks just like the rest of them, except he has that place. Despite the fact that it has like it looks like it's broken down and has holes in it.
Yeah, right. And it's a cool location. There's a lot of the locations in this film because it is a indie film and they shot on location. They look really gritty and really lived in and nasty, and it was like places you would not want to go. I don't want to be there, but I think that that's like about really it's a little bit further into the film. The way the film starts out, if it starts off with like the chuds under the ground. They open up like a sewer hole, and then the hand comes out and grabs this lady and her dog. That's the first scene of the film,
Yeah.
and then and that's how it's kind of established because and the lady happens to be the captain's wife, unfortunately for him, and he's trying to figure out what happened to her.
Which until I rewatched it, I never picked up on that was his wife until I rewatched it. I was like, oh shit. The first person in the movie who dies is his wife. That's the person who's missing that he's so gung ho about finding what happened to her about. And I don't know. To be honest, I haven't seen the movie in a long time, and so I saw it a lot. I would say the '80s and maybe
Right.
the early '90s.
It,
Whenever Bud the Chud 2 came out, is probably when I stopped watching this movie. So if you around that time, I like that movie hurt my brain so much that I kind of stopped watching Chud.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like a
But
spoof cut.
it was one of those things where when you're a kid, I don't pick up on all the dialogue stuff as much as I do as an adult, which is why it's good to revisit movies, even if they're older movies such as this. Um,
You're right. And oh, a bit of trivia for that: the lady who's killed at the beginning is Daniel Stern's wife, but he plays the wife of Captain Bosch, Christopher Curry's character. But it's funny that that's his wife, and later on they have her severed head laying on the ground, and apparently that severed head wasn't in the theatrical cut. And when there's a director, it's weird. There's a director's commentary with the film on the Arrow release,
mhm.
and it's not even really a director's commentary. It has all the main actors, all three of those guys, and the director and some other crew guy. And the actors are pretty much talking the whole time. The director's hardly saying a word. It's very rare that he says anything. But Daniel Stern's quite a character, and John Hurd are bouncing off each other pretty good. And the Christopher Curry too in the director. But it's pretty much the actors talking about the film. But But yeah, but it's interesting though that the film actually has three main characters. Like John Hurd plays, he's a top build character, but it's kind of the focus is weird. The way it kind of has to be split between those three characters, and you're saying like to you, it probably feels like, and the way it should be was the Captain Bosch should be the main character, the police captain. But it's really weird that John Hurd's character, the photographer, gets so much screen time with his character's not that much involved with what's going on, you know?
It is odd because I didn't notice it till I rewatched it how much he is not involved with like the investigation, knowing about the what's happening with the underground people. He just seems almost oblivious because he only cares about taking the perfect pictures for an article that he's supposed to be working on, but he can't find the real subject for it. And
Yeah.
the fact that his wife or his girlfriend, this is because they're not married yet. His girlfriend, what's her name, Lauren.
Yeah, Lauren. Kim
Lauren,
Greist plays her.
yeah, Lauren just tells him that she's pregnant. So it becomes this weird thing where he's like oblivious to everything else going around him when his girlfriend tells him that they're having a baby, and it's so.
Well, yeah, something else that happens before that that's really odd. Like there's all this drama between him and his girlfriend, but because she is like a model and she wants him to come. He's a photographer, so she tricks him into coming to this photo shoot where she's apparently taken off all of her clothes or some of her clothes. It doesn't really show anything. She's under a blanket, but he's like flipping out about it. And he doesn't like it. So there's all this drama about that, and he actually leaves during it because he gets a call and he leaves like in the middle of it. So there's all this drama, and apparently that pregnant scene isn't in the theatrical cut. That's the director's cut only for that.
So I may have happened to watch the director's cut on Tubi instead of the original cut.
You must have, and it was like it's a weird thing because I did not even notice it until I started listening to the director's commentary, and the actors were saying she's not pregnant in this one because this is the theatrical cut. And when it got to the scene where she's talking about being pregnant, they're like, "Wait a minute, she is pregnant in this one. This is the director's cut. We were talking about the theatrical cut, you
Oh
know?"
Jesus. Yeah, see, I don't even know anymore because, like I said, it's been a few years since I had to rewatch this movie.
Yeah,
But
but it's really hard to find the theatrical cut. I couldn't find it. The only way it used to be the only one available, but the only way that I could find to get it would be to buy the Arrow release that has both of them in it, and it's kind of out of print now and really high. It's hard, but it's yeah, I didn't even know that until I was listening to the commentary, and I was like, wait a minute, there's two cuts of this film.
you're gonna make me go and see what version my DVD version is now.
Yeah, I bet you that DVD version's the original. I bet you that's the theatrical. You could tell by the time, the 88 minutes for the original cut, and I think it's like it's more than 88 minutes. I think yeah,
Okay,
I think it adds about 6 minutes to it or something. If
I'll,
it's
I'll
the
check.
other one, I think 96 minutes is what it ends up being.
I'll check that because now you made me curious. I might have to go back and just rewatch it just to see, because it's still fresh in my head now with the version I saw on Tubi. I'll rewatch
Right.
it to see the differences again with the one I grew up watching versus the one I just watched.
And what seems like the biggest difference is you'll see the pregnant. Basically, some of the scenes between John Hurt and his girlfriend are cut shorter. That's one of the biggest things. And then they switched the ending to make the producer switched it, but it makes the ending even more like, inconclusive than the director's cut. It kind of just it's a really and plus they put scenes out of order, so there's some continuity issues with the background.
Hmm.
But
Interesting. Okay. Well,
this film the budget 125 million and it made 4.7 million at the box office. So it did
wait,
pretty good.
you said 120 million was the budget?
Yeah, 1.25
Oh,
million is the
1.2.
budget. Yeah,
Okay.
125 million, man, and it only made four. Nah, yeah, that's me saying numbers wrong, man. But but it made $4 million, so they did pretty good for a film like this in 1984.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I guess so. In the '80s, like that, you didn't have to make a whole lot because you had print advertising for your marketing and not so much all the television marketing. Uh, I don't know if I could have sworn there's probably a trailer for it somewhere though.
Yeah, that apparently like Daniel Stern and Christopher Curry when they were shooting the movie they started rewriting it as they were going. And they tried to involve the original writer. They're like, hey, we're having to rewrite some scenes, and he just didn't want to be involved with the writing anymore. I guess he handed them the script and was like, I'm done. You know, that's yeah. So then they apparently wrote, especially Christopher Curry. They were like rewriting the stuff as they were going, and so they talk about that on the director's commentary or the I don't know. I keep calling it director's commentary, but it's a commentary that has the director talking a little bit in it, but it's mostly the actors who kind of took over. It sounds like they kind of took over anyway while they were going.
The one
Apparently, Daniel Stern's character wasn't as big of a character until they got into writing him in there more.
Yeah, but the thing I like about this film is it there's a whole thing about class structure in this movie, which I didn't see when I was a kid because I didn't know about class structure back when I was a fucking kid. Uh, and there's everything about these big corporations who are essentially covering up their mistakes and
Yeah,
allowing
yeah.
the underground people and the homeless people to be, I guess, used and abused and everything else with
Well, I guess
disregard.
I guess they got some like toxic waste that they have to dispose of, and they were trying to move it, and so they ended up not knowing having what to do with it, and so they stored it in the sewer, not knowing what it would do. But
Yeah. So I'm trying to remember that character's name, but I can't remember the character's name.
is it Wilson, like the main antagonist?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So Wilson is head of this organization who has secretly dropped or stored toxic waste in the sewer, and they legally can't move it until because it's under a lawsuits under review and shit like that. But other than that, they were already illegally dumping it, and some of this stuff has been leaking and has been affecting
yeah,
the underground people, not the homeless, because the homeless still are on the streets like normal homeless people, but the people who live in the underground. Well, obviously, they stay down there too long, and they become what we call chuds. Now, I don't think I noticed this until I rewatched it. That slowly see the one guy slowly get infected by a chud and then slowly develop into one of them by the end of the film when he has an altercation with Heard's character. Can't remember that.
yeah. You know about so there's a one of the homeless characters lives underground. He got his leg bitten by one of the other ones, right? Is what you're
Yeah,
talking about?
yeah, he gets it.
Yeah, yeah. So it shows him a few times, not many times, but it shows him earlier, and then John Hurt's character is brought down there by this other lady to
Mm-hmm.
see him, and then he takes some pictures of his legs and stuff like that, and how he's bitten. That's kind of their evidence they use later on, but unwittingly because they come and steal the photographs, like Daniel Stern and Christopher Curry's character, but yeah, but later on he comes back down there, and that guy. That's interesting the way that he looks there because he's not the full chuds
No.
look crazy, but he's kind of in this kind of in between stage. He's got his eyes have got contacts in and or the yellow eyes, and he looks very ghoulish. Uh,
He's
that's
not
what
really.
Daniel Stern and and the other guys who were doing the commentary thought that that's the way that all the Chuds should have looked. They're like, we think they went a little too far. They should have been looking like that the whole time, you know. And that
Well,
was their opinion of it.
yeah, but when I rewatched this and realized that, that makes the Bud, the Chud, and the second ones look much more what do you call it?
Yeah. So
It
it
makes it
gets,
more.
yeah,
He doesn't look like the Chud that I normally
right.
associate. He looks like one of those ones who hadn't fully developed.
Yeah. So these Chuds, the main ones, I don't. I mean, maybe there could have been some other explanation about where they come from. They almost to me look like fish monsters in a way, like green,
Mm-hmm.
scaly looking kind of fish monsters, and their eyes glow. And they look gnarly, but they're like kind of like these guys in suits pretty much. But they look pretty cool. But they don't look anything like a person does. So maybe they're not even people. Yeah,
Well,
but they're supposed to be.
well, no, I mean Wilson's character thinks that when he thinks there's only one of them, he says that only his thought process is there can only be one anomaly like this. But he is completely wrong because all of the people that I would assume are the underground people have all been changed this way because they've been down there too damn long.
Yeah,
But you're right, it does go a little bit too far, and the only hokey scene in the entire film that makes this seem ridiculous is when Lauren is face to face with the Chud at the very end, and his head grows. I never liked
yeah.
that scene. I always thought that scene was crazily stupid. I was like, his head's
But
growing, and
But
it's
yeah. But the whole point of that is funny as shit because she like takes off this samurai sword off the wall that it's showing throughout the film. And the whole reason is to give her a target so she can cut his neck off. That's the only reason for it.
it's the most ridiculous. And I love this movie, but that's the only scene that I always thought was just ridiculous because all of a sudden his head's growing, or
Yeah.
his neck is growing, and I'm like, why the hell is his neck growing? Oh, that
Yeah.
was the only
Yeah.
scene in the entire movie that ever took me out of it, even when I was a kid. So I was like, and it still does. I think that's the only scene that really takes me out of the movie because, like you said, it's a really gritty, grimy, dirty movie when you're watching this. It's
Yeah.
not as dirty as something like Street Trash, but it's a dirty movie.
And it's weird because you don't see a lot of monsters. You see them very, very sparsely,
Mm-hmm.
very sporadically. And earlier on, all you're seeing are hands for a long period of time, or maybe aftermath of stuff. Which, by the way, that's pretty messed up to kill the dog right off the bat. So I guess they're just letting people know, hey, this is what's happening in this movie. We're killing dogs, so you can go home.
They kill everybody. They don't kill the kids. They don't kill the kids. You keep thinking they're going to kill a kid, but they don't kill the
Yeah.
kids in this movie. I noticed that.
Right. Really? Yeah. I guess they didn't do that. I'd rather them kill the kid than the dog, though. Really.
The one kid who was in the phone booth, he watches her father get killed, and then of
Yeah.
course the one kid who's bouncing the ball, and the Chud's like banging on the door, and you keep thinking that the Chud's gonna come through and rip him to bits. That kid
Yeah.
doesn't get killed either. It's like great suspense,
Yeah.
but no
Right.
big deal.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it kind of seemed like those kids were going to get it, but yeah, they.
Oh, jeez.
I guess they spared people that because, it's fine. I mean, the thing about killing a dog and something, a lot of people really hate that, but it's good in a way because it shows you like how the creatures can kill other things first before killing a person. So it helps you build suspense because, like, say the characters in the film aren't gonna care that much about a dog getting killed or disappearing. They care more about a person disappearing. But
Mhm.
that's not the case in this movie. I mean, clearly it takes her and the dog at the same time. But I mean, generally, a lot of times it's for script purposes. A dog disappears and it's not like a police investigation. It's like, oh shit, my dog's gone. We're looking for it, but the police aren't going to care. But then a person's gone, and that's a big difference.
No, it's a
So,
good point. Well, that's an interesting point you make too, especially considering that one of the things is that Bosch has been covering up is all these disappearances to begin with for the mayor and everyone above the mayor. The whole thing is like this huge cover up
right.
because the idea is that it's only street people who are disappearing. We don't need to tell the public this. But when it's Bosch's wife that goes missing, he gets this whole thing gets personal. Um,
Right, and he's still kind of struggling with how much he should care.
Mhm.
And his wife's disappeared, but it's not until she's actually found dead that he flips out. But up until then, he's still kind of partially being cooperative with all the bureaucracy going on around him, and he's
Mhm.
still trying to. He's putting his opinion in there pretty strongly, and he's going against what they're doing, and he's doing things that they tell him not to do. But he's not as belligerent until after his wife dies. Now, Daniel Stern's character is belligerent, and then he actually they put a tail on him. They got to follow him, which is probably one of the best scenes in the film. He goes over to make a phone call to go call the newspaper, and this other guy walks up in a red polo shirt, and he takes his quarter and he swallows it, and he just like stares him down until he walks away. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do.
Then later on, he goes down into like a storm shelter, into the sewer. Daniel Stern does, and then the guy with the red shirt comes and locks him in there with a padlock. Then it don't show the guy again, but
He's part of the bureaucracy, the people, the people higher up, and
right,
Daniel Stern's Shepherd is just as expendable as everyone else.
right. And they don't get immediately ruthless. Like he does send the guy out. I don't know if he's intentionally trying to kill him, but he does lock him in the sewer. So and then they plan on putting gas down there. So maybe he is intentionally trying to kill him, but he's not like straight up killing him. He's doing it in a kind of a passive aggressive way, I guess. But he's not like coming up and knifing him or something and walking away. So it still gives him an opportunity to get away.
All right, so do you think that the Chud monsters are very effective for a movie in '84? Do
the
they hold up
Yeah,
now?
I don't think they would hold up now unless like I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing them myself in something, but I think a lot of people don't like the rubber suit stuff that much anymore. They kind of want to see something a little more organic looking. Or I think to me it's like what they were saying about the makeup. It looks better almost if they look still human, but just a little deformed. Like if you start to deform and not look like a complete kind of fish monster humanoid. It kind of reminds me of this came out later, but humanoids from the deep, the way those fish monsters look in that, they kind of look a little bit like the Chuds here, but that was 1996, 2 years later. But also that movie has humanoids in the title, so they're clearly were like taken off of this, like the cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers.
Well, until you mentioned that they look like fish monsters, I as soon as you said that, I was thinking of humanoids of the deep from the deep
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, but of course, humanoids from the deep kind of took this design because it was later. Another thing they're talking about the writing that's funny. It's like revealing the chud, what it means. But they originally had this idea of have a homeless guy out in the street just going chud, 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 and that was like what he's going to keep doing. And then eventually they asked him what it means, and he was going to tell them what it means, and that was it was kind of that's what Daniel Stern and Christopher what was his name? But those guys, that's their idea, but they didn't fly apparently. Because they wanted to fit the title into the film, but they eventually did with the bureaucracy guys with the folders. They find this folder that says "Chud" on it.
Well, that makes much more sense. It's a special project called C.H.U.D, which, by the way, doesn't mean cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers. What does it mean, Dave?
Means contamination, hazard, urban disposal, which doesn't sound as good.
Well, that's the reason why I never remember. I've always
Yeah.
known it did mean cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers. I've just always liked that more.
Well, yeah, but that's what it always has meant. That was what it always meant. But when they had the cover up scene, they had to come up with a different anagram for it. So they were like, what could CHUD stand for? And they came up with this, which doesn't really make a lot of sense. Contamination, hazard, urban disposal. I don't know. But then of course they're going to put those down in the sewer, and they're going to put that on there on the boxes, so people find them, they know what it means. I mean,
Oh my god! I had forgotten that they actually did do that too.
apparently they didn't carry that over into C.H.U.D 2. I guess they're like, we don't need that now because we're gonna do something different.
Well, the second film does do something completely different.
Yeah, I was
But
going.
we'll get to that
Yeah,
one day.
yeah. Honestly, I don't hardly remember the second one. I think I saw it on TV. I don't even know if I watched the whole thing. It was so goofy, but I do have a copy of it, the Vestron release copy of it. So
Well, it has Garrett Graham in it, and that's the only reason why I
yeah,
rewatched it. I've seen it twice.
yeah,
So when it
he's
first
Bud
came
the
out,
Chud.
yeah, I saw it. When I realized who he was is when I saw it a second time, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. When I got a VHS copy of it, not VHS, a DVD copy. The Before Vestron had put it out on that special fucking
Yeah,
Blu-ray copy. That I think the
right.
only way you could have ever gotten Chud 2 was on this compilation DVD, which I bought because I was looking for this fucking movie because I didn't remember how bad it was. I just remembered
Yeah.
it was a sequel. And so I was looking for it. And then that was the only way I found it. It was like, I think it was Chud 2, 976 Evil 2,
Oh wow,
and,
yeah, yeah,
and two other movies that were probably straight to DVD films I don't remember either.
yeah.
Horror High. Horror High was one of them because
Horror High.
I pulled it out. I pulled
It's
it
got
out.
to be Return to Horror High, right? Or is it
No, I think
original?
it's just Horror High. It's a
Yeah,
completely bad movie.
yeah,
Um, I can't remember the other movie, but 976 Evil 2, no one fucking remembers either. Just like
yeah.
2.
I've seen that one. It's been a while though. I remember the first one really good.
Oh yeah, I remember. I like the
Yeah,
first one,
yeah,
but the
yeah.
second one has nothing to do with the first one.
Right. They only make two of those, or was it more?
God, I think there's only two, and I hope there's only two.
Yeah,
We haven't gotten around to discussing 976 Evil just yet, but maybe one.
yeah. I don't think they have a decent release out of that right now, as far as I know. If they pop one out though, I'll be snagging it.
I think you're right. I don't have that. I have the
Yeah,
second one, but I do not have the first one. So.
they probably have like maybe a DVD release of it, maybe, or if they have a Blu-ray, it's gonna be an upscale from DVD,
No, I don't think anyone's looking or asking for a 976 Evil Blu-ray 4K upgrade. But
You might be surprised.
I mean,
I bet you it'd sell a lot of copies if it was done right. It depends on who puts it out too. If Scream Factory put it out, it'd probably sell a pretty good bit, or if Arrow did.
or Vestron puts it among their releases.
Well, if Vestron puts it out, it might. I mean, it won't make as much money because they'll have to sell it real cheap, like they do their stuff. So
Really?
but
Oh, okay.
yeah, because Vestrons are like obviously the older ones are harder to get. They're going to cost you more, but like if everything they put out a newer one, they're pretty inexpensive to collect. That's one of the cheaper ones to collect the whole thing. But there are a few that are tough to get, at least tough to get with a slipcover and reasonably priced. But
Okay. All right. Well, I'll keep that in mind. I'll probably look for that so that we can watch that or find a streaming service that streams it.
yeah, there's that guy from Fright Night in it. He played like I can't remember his name now, but he played like his friend in it.
Yeah, he played Evil Ed.
Yeah, Evil Ed, yeah, yeah.
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 Who directed that? I think it was Robert England. No, someone.
I think you're right. I think he did direct it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think
But
you're
that
right.
is a
Yeah.
diversion from our Chud talk.
I have another slight diversion, which isn't much of one, but I do want to point out a couple other sewer related films. Really, this is a comic book, but it became a film eventually. 1984, the same year this came out, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the comic book. I mean, I don't know if it's related in any way, but sometimes things just get out in the air, and they kind of, even though it may not have been going for Chud because it came out the same year that Chud came out, there's no way they were drawing it and all that. But these ideas came at the same time. And another one, which was only 2 years later, It by Stephen King, the 1986 book.
Oh, okay. Well, I can honestly say that I was buying Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles when they came out.
Yeah.
I was back then. I still have my issue number 4.
Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah.
Too bad you didn't have the first three.
I I didn't know what the fuck it was. I just saw
Yeah.
the big ass comic book and said, "Oh, this looks cool with turtles and shit." Uh,
Right. I had the Nintendo game to it. So it's hard
That
as
was,
hell too.
yeah. Well, this has been one big diversion for the film, even though
Yeah.
we,
Sorry, I didn't mean to divert. I had those notes, and I was like, I feel like there's other like sewer things going
yeah.
on during this time period, and I feel like it was just suddenly like, let's make films about the sewer because things go under the sewer. And it is freaking creepy, in the sewer. Even in this film, under that you don't see a lot of it, you don't see it on the screen that much, but when you do see it, it looks really nasty and very sewerish.
Well, when they go into the underground, it's like a labyrinth. It just seems like it keeps going and going and going, which makes it really visually
Yeah.
interesting. But we don't see a lot of action down there, which is unfortunate. We see it in a couple of in the end in the last act. We see them Daniel Stern's character and
Right.
I keep wanting Hurd's
John
character.
Hurt's character. Yeah. Which is
Are
weird is like they don't really interact until the last like maybe 20 or 30 minutes of the film.
Yeah, exactly. Which I kind of didn't realize until I rewatched it. I kept thinking that all three of
Yeah.
them interact the entire movie, but they don't.
Right. Yeah. I thought I mean for some reason I thought it was more about Daniel Stern's character and John Hurt's character interacting. I didn't even remember the captain character. To me, it seems like one of those three characters should have died like about halfway through the film,
Yeah, I can
because
see
it seemed
that.
like it's yeah. I mean, I mean, I don't. I mean, I kind of like all three characters. I'm not necessarily opposed to them living, but it kind of the way that it if it was like set up where the captain Bosch dies in the middle, and then from there, like Daniel Stern's character, that he doesn't die, but he's taken out of the plot by finding his dead wife, and then the cops won't let him really be on the case anymore at that point.
Yeah, but then again,
So
the
he is.
yeah, well, no. I was about to say something else. You finish it with Bosch's character.
No. I was just saying, like with that situation, he just he gets taken out of the plot a little bit. So from there, he's just on the sidelines for a while until the end.
Hmm. Well, for me, then we end up having the character of Lauren, who seems to be shoehorned into the plot and everything.
Right? Yeah, yeah. She kind of becomes which, other than her chopping the guy's head off because his head grow, her chopping chopping the head off is pretty cool, but not his head growing, so it gives her a target. But her that whole stalking around the apartment's pretty cool. But for some reason, other they have her suddenly decided she calls the cops. She's like something weird's going on. I found this dead dog. She finds the dog. Then she's like, I'm gonna go take a shower while I'm waiting for the cops to get here. I mean, what? That's like a forced thing by the producers, clearly. And then she takes a shower. You don't even really see any nudity. Apparently, they shot scenes with a body double, and then they originally had them cut in there, and then they eventually cut them out and there's not really a version with it. But it's like it's so dumb, go take a shower, and then while she's in the shower, suddenly blood like sprays out of the drain all over her face,
Mm-hmm.
and then after that, you see her with no blood on her. Because you think, are you going to stay in the shower and finish your shower when you get blood sprayed in your face? I guess they're like, wait a minute, there's blood coming out of the drain, but I don't want it to stay on me, so I'm going to make sure I get it off of me.
Well, that whole scene doesn't really make as much sense. I'm like, huh? So there's blood in the shower. Okay, how did it get there? These chuds don't seem to be wanting to put blood.
Right.
Yeah, it that her whole story seems to be shoehorned in there either to get more female viewers to watch this or to titillate the male audience. I don't know which it does, but it just seems out of place in
Right.
the movie itself.
Right. And I will say though, she's pretty good in several of the scenes.
Oh yeah.
Even though I don't particularly like the idea of shoehorning the pregnancy thing in there. It doesn't go anywhere, and it just seems like a drama thing that you see in things all the time. But that scene where they talk about the pregnancy, both the actors do a really great job in that scene. And it's they sell it, but it's like one of those scenes where you're kind of rolling your eyes because of you've seen that so many times before. For
So
me, anyway.
so this is what I do want to say about it is in '84 when the very first the scene where she mentions to Heard's character that she's pregnant the first thing he'd ask her is, well, what would you want to do with it? Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
he doesn't want to tell her first. He just wants to know what she says first, and then he'll say, "Oh, that's exactly what I want to do." Instead of saying, "Oh, it's not mine. We should get an abortion." Blah 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 blah. Well, let's make sure it's I'm not really in the mood for having a child. Blah 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 blah. There's different ways they could have approached that, but in this scene, they made it as though it was her choice the entire time instead of his choice, or his modus operandi would be just to talk her down from it, because he does seem kind of condescending when
Well,
for the first part of
yeah,
the movie, because he doesn't want to go to this photo shoot. He thinks it's below his talents. He doesn't he
yeah.
done it before and he doesn't want to do it again. And until that moment, you kind of think he might be a little bit of a dick.
Yeah, yeah, and at the same time, it seems controlling because he's like, she comes up to him and she's like, "You didn't ask my permission about doing this." Because on top of that, he doesn't want to do the photo shoot
Mm-hmm.
because he doesn't like her taking off her clothes and being photographed without her clothes on. So it seems controlling, but I mean, everything that he's saying comes off that way, and he even gets in kind of a fight with the people there, and he's being pretty like unprofessional really in that situation. But at the same time, I don't know exactly where he's coming from. What do you think? Would say there's two things going on when the pregnancy scene. Either he's he's really legitimately wants it to be her choice, or maybe he doesn't want the baby and he just but he'll only want the baby if she says yes. So I don't know. Yeah, maybe what I'm saying, because it could be he's like, maybe if I just hang back on this, she'll decide not to have the baby, and it's good either way, sort of thing.
I think you could have made a story of him just saying what she wants him to say if they didn't have that scene with both of them in the park. It's the only clean scene really in the whole movie. It's the only one where you don't see the grime of the city.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And also they have that conversation. I can't remember where the conversation is exactly, but they have a conversation where she wants to move out to the suburbs and out of the city, and the city is where all of his work is. Now, his work is right now. He thinks his work is like this tremendous, life changing. I've got to shoot real life, real
yeah,
people, and the photo shoot is all fake. It's commercialized. It's I don't want to work for the man type of thing. But also to his boss, he doesn't want to do his assignment because he wants to do his thing. He keeps avoiding his boss's phone calls until
yeah.
to the point where his boss says that he's just going to write an article without having the pictures, and he'll just fix it all afterwards. You
I
know
feel like, yeah, it's weird because I feel like he just doesn't want to do anything but what he wants to do.
exactly.
It's like, and it's maybe a personality flaw in a way, but it's also, I mean, I guess it's also a good personality trait because you got a lot of people pressuring him to do other things other than what he wants to do, which that shit happens in real life too.
Hmm.
But I guess that's probably, I mean, he's just fighting it. He's fighting against like his girlfriend and this other guy who wants him to do. She wants him to do these photo shoots, which he doesn't want to do, and this other guy wants him to do some other bullshit he don't want to do. So
Yeah, and then of course,
that's
oh, go
do I
ahead.
know? I was gonna say that I was changing the subject, but you had something else to go on onto. I
Well,
was gonna,
then again, he also gets talked into. I can't remember the reporter's name. The reporter that comes to him tries to convince him that the cops are using him or have something are using him because they broke into his house, took his photos, and there's something behind that. When in
right.
the cops are actually on his side, he just doesn't know it yet. And of course,
Yeah.
the reporter, who is like this sleazy reporter because he's been
Yeah.
hanging around at the precinct the entire time trying to get the latest scoop, which is kind of funny. Of course, then he dies, so it's his own comeuppance.
Yeah. He doesn't. Yeah, he does seem like he's very sleazy, and he's. I don't. I mean, it's hilarious kind of when he gets killed because he goes down into the sewer with John Hurt's character, and then they drag him. He has a gun all of a sudden, and then they drag him into the sewer. And John Hurt gets the gun. But there's also another scene that we didn't talk about when when the cops send these guys in these hilarious looking suits down into the and flamethrowers to
Oh
go
yeah.
kill the chuds, and they have one guy with a camera, and they all get killed. Kind of like a aliens, like from Aliens, kind of like that, But it doesn't show it. Apparently, they shot it showing it, but they ended up never putting it in any of the versions.
Oh, interesting. Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
that would have been cool. Yeah, that would have been cool
yeah,
to see. Huh.
right. I guess yeah, they cut. I mean, maybe it sucked, maybe it didn't look good, whatever. They had it put together, but you see the aftermath of it later on, and they get the cat's camera. But the thing I was going to mention before is the answer machine technology, which is like for people watching it today, that is not going to make a lot of sense. It's like the craziest shit. And it's just like just walking into your house. So now people got phones and they just like listen to the message on the phones. But I remember doing this. But you basically have to hit the answer machine and then you hear the messages. And he even has this little black box he has to carry with him in his pocket when he's at the photo shoot and he goes to listen to his messages there and he puts his black box up against the phone which interacts with the beep of the answer machine. Then he can hear his messages through there until they came out with better technology for it. It's just interesting seeing that old technology like that.
Yep. I didn't recall that either until I rewatched it. You're absolutely right because I said, "Oh my God, this feels so old,"
Yeah,
but because I hadn't seen the movie in years until we watched it. So yes.
you're right. Yeah, I hadn't seen it in a long time either. It's kind of interesting too when they find the Geiger counter when they go down in the sewer, like Daniel Stern's character and Captain Bosch. They go down in the sewer and they find a Geiger counter and you hear the radiation going off crazy on it. And you think that I don't know what the ramifications of being around radiation that's that strong. I think you would be contaminated in some way, like just being around it like that.
Um. Well, from my understanding from other fictional movies, you have to be around it a certain amount of time to be truly affected. I do know that in a lot of places like Fukushima and Chernobyl, they can only be in certain radiated areas, even with a suit for a certain amount of time, and then they have to be out because it would be too much radiation exposure, and that's put people in a suit. So,
Right. I guess apparently it takes a little while for them to turn into chuds, I would think, in the movie. So in this movie, but I would think with that Geiger counter going all the way up like that, that it's going to be a problem being that close to radiation. It's that hot, It's like, because it didn't go all. I mean, it went all the way up.
yeah,
It's
yeah, but it's the movies.
yeah. It certainly is.
They won't feel the effects of it till like the fourth sequel. So,
Yeah.
jeez, I'm thinking about other things that we've skipped around a lot for Chud. Is there
Yeah.
anything else you can think of that we're not saying about this movie? So we're just skipping around on it.
Well, I think we covered a lot of it. I mean, we need to get into the final parts of it, but I'm just trying to think if there's anything within the earlier stuff that we skipped over. I know we kind of bounced back and forth, but there is like the government scene where they all go into this boardroom and they're trying to figure out what happens. I get it when Daniel Stern's character has the big speech, which I thought was pretty good.
Yeah, he has a big speech. He also reveals the photos to Wilson. We actually get to know a little bit about Wilson, the mayor, and of course how Bosch fits in this hierarchy, which will come into play later because Wilson, at the very end, when you're thinking about it, Wilson is now trying to cover up this fuck up as much as possible now. So
Uh,
he thinks by simply flooding the sewer with fucking gas and it will kill them all because they accidentally killed one of them with gas. It seems kind of weird when
Yeah.
you think that flamethrowers will just fucking be the best way. Let's just fucking you know,
Right, yeah. It seems a little disastrous blowing up the sewer. You think that they could blow up a lot more than just the sewer.
spark.
You think they'd almost have to evacuate the whole city, but then they just come up with that plan to do that, to fill it with gas. And clearly there's going to be a lot of people down there who they're already kind of infected anyway, but they're gonna die, anyone down there, and they don't seem to care.
They don't, like I said, there's a complete disregard to the homeless people. No one went down there to check if there was normal homeless people down there. They just assumed this one little area where all the murders happen, which I also didn't realize that it's literally until I rewatched it. They're literally just talking about these like couple of blocks of area where all these people have disappeared. So that's why they say that they're going to uh, block them all up, close the sewer. The sewer
The
main.
manhole covers, yeah.
Thank you, manhole
Yeah.
cover, and just gas the whole place.
Yeah, so that's why they put all their trucks on top of the manhole covers. Meanwhile, like Daniel Stern's character Shepard and John Hurt's character Cooper are trapped down there, and so they're trying to get out, and then they get in touch with Bosch, and he starts trying to help them get out. But that's when it goes really south with the Wilson character, because he tries to tell him what's going on, and then Wilson pulls him aside, and he's just like, we're not doing that, and he ends up having to fight him and all this. And
Mm-hmm.
but what's also weird is that it's another way that they shoehorn the Lauren character in. She gets away from the apartment, and she knows that. I guess before that, the diner scene happens with John Goodman's
Mm-hmm.
character. They come in this diner, and then the diner's like a bunch of chuds bust into the diner and kill everybody in there. And that's why the reporters are there now. There's reporters, and everyone knows kind of that something's going on. So now it's not a secret anymore. But now it's like we really got to blow these sewers up. But anyway, so the Lauren character, she escapes the monsters, but she knows her boyfriend Cooper's down in the sewer, so she just happens to drive up. She steals a police car because the police come in to her apartment to try to save her, and the monsters kill the police. But she steals a police car, and she knows to drive down to where these reporters are to get out of the car to try to save her boyfriend. It's just really odd
Well,
that.
that's just one of the reasons why I say it's an odd sequence to shoehorn her in that last sequence. They had to give her something to do.
Yeah, right, right.
They had to give her something to do, I guess. They didn't want to write her out completely.
Right, yeah. But they make yeah, so the Chuds are the monsters in a way, but they're homeless people that are turned into monsters, but the movie ultimately makes the real monster to be Wilson, who's the head of the corporate thing he's still trying to cover everything up when everything's blowing up in his face pretty much.
Pretty much. And of course, he gets killed for his own hubris and ends up blowing up the sewers with all the gas in it when his van hits the open manhole cover, which is funny because that's what you're trying to avoid is a big freaking fireball, and that's exactly what happens anyways.
Right, right. And I guess like that is implying that most of the Chuds, if they were underground at the time, were probably killed. But it doesn't really focus on that. It more focuses on the Wilson character being killed. He also shoots Bosch, which he may or may not die from that bullet wound. He looks pretty bad shape though. Um, but I don't know if he'd make it out of that or not. But then I guess it's left open a little bit because you don't know for a fact that all the Chuds are killed in it. But it just kind of ends there in the director's cut.
Yeah,
And the
well,
and the other the other cut, the original cut. I don't remember exactly how the sequence went because I wasn't able to rewatch it, but I think they do all that stuff, and it seems like they've saved everybody. But then it cuts to the diner scene with John Goodman and the other guy in there, and then the Chuds are still alive and they bust into the diner, leaving it more open for a sequel and not like all the Chuds were blown up in the sewer.
hmm I think I remember that one when that growing up as that person because you said that's how the way it originally ended the theatrical.
Yeah,
I think
and
that's
it's in many ways a stronger ending. I mean, it makes it. I remember like the second time I watched it, which was a really long time ago, thinking it ended kind of abruptly, even with that, like the other parts, because they had to cut some other stuff out to make that make sense. I think so. It's some of the other stuff kind of ended a lot more abruptly than it does in the director's cut.
well, I'm definitely gonna check out my version and see which one I have because actually prefer the scenes in the right order with the director's cut. So I'll need to get that Chud version, the Arrow release like you have.
Yeah. Well, the one I have doesn't have it, the director, the original cut on it. There is another version that has it, but the cheaper one, that's reasonably priced only has like the director's cut on it, or it's, I guess they don't call it director's cut, they call it something else, but it's some other cut, but it's the one that's in the right order, the way that it was intended to be.
Yeah, that seems to be the one that's on Tubi. Is that one? Everything seemed to be in the right.
Yeah,
But I do think you're right. I think the theatrical cut. It seems to me that that scene with John Goodman was at the very end when I was growing up on that version. So I'll have to rewatch it and then see if that one still holds up as well. Because I like it. I liked it. I like the version I saw because a lot of it makes much more sense. But when you're a kid watching this movie, I think I skipped over a lot of the details because I'm a kid. It's a monster movie. I'm waiting for the
you're
monster
right.
to kill somebody.
Yeah,
I like
right. Yeah. For sure. That's definitely the way I saw it the first time I saw it. Yeah, I was definitely in it for the monsters and the kills. And I don't remember it that being that very few of that. There is a lot of exposition and there's a lot of build up. So, but it's actually done fairly well, and the acting is good. Pretty committed performances by most of the actors.
Mm, yeah. Well, anything else you would like to bring up to us for C.H.U.D? Did we skip anything? Because I don't want to skip anything.
Yeah, we may have, but nothing I have written down here. It's just
No, we went over all my notes. That's why I stopped flipping through my notebook.
yeah. No, I don't. Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, other than yeah, I mean, I think that I've said everything I have written down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any final words for our audience in regards to the movie Cannibalistic Humanoid Underground Dwellers?
Oh yeah, I guess like to me the strongest points was I was just kind of saying anyway, but is really the actors. Even though I think the characters are kind of it's kind of odd, especially John Hurd's character and his girlfriend being kind of the lead characters, where the Daniel Stern's character and Christopher Curry's police captain are the more interesting characters, and they seem more tied into the actual plot. But I felt like maybe if it I think there is some kind of disconnect with the way that the characters are, but at the same time, I do like the actors. I like the way that they do the scenes. I like the way that they act in it, and they really commit themselves to the scene like it's like not a B movie. They commit it to it like it's like a legit film. Even like the scene, for instance, like John Hurd and Daniel Stern. Once they team up, it's pretty cool dynamic between them, and they find the Chud boxes, which is kind of a it's kind of like one of those kind of cheesy reveals in a way that it's like the way that the way that they act in that scene though is very convincing that they found something that they just can't believe. But at the same time, I think as as an audience member, I mean the way that Wilson guy was acting the whole time, none of that would surprise me. Because I was like, I mean, it's pretty obvious that was already going on to me. But once they see it, they're like, I can't believe it. But it's some committed performances, though.
Yeah, yeah. I'll agree with you on that. I think that the performances in this film hold up really well, and it makes the film a much higher grade film than a standard B movie. And also the fact that the way that it's shot and it's so gritty and it's a dirty film makes it feel like it's not like a Hollywood produced or overly produced horror movie, which I actually can I actually enjoy those type of movies because when you see too many clean films, too many films that look like they're too polished, um,
Yeah, yeah.
they kind of take you out of the reality that the film is trying to create. And this film, as Herd's character is trying to do, is get deep into the reality of the city that he's trying to photograph. Like he doesn't want to be part of the fake model photography world. He wants to be part of the gritty underbelly, the real world. And that's what this film actually parallels with. It wants to show the audience a much grittier, real world look. And even though they have monsters, these monsters are made by a fuck up in regards to nuclear waste dump. When you think
Right, right,
that was probably in a lot of people's brains in the 80s. How do we dispose of this waste? Is there a good way to dispose of it? Where should we dispose of it? What happens with
right, right.
money? changes hands and people don't dispose of it in the right way. So
Probably not a good idea to put it in the sewers under a city, though. It's like, it's like just too many people there.
I would have to do some research, but I'm pretty sure this wouldn't be the first movie or the last movie that has to deal with toxic waste. And I'm not going to say the most obvious one, which is well, I am going to say it, the toxic.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Hopefully, the remake is coming out this year, so we'll see how they upgrade that movie. Because obviously, if you see
Right.
the original Toxic Avenger, it just toxic waste is just riding in the back of a truck.
Yeah.
Open for someone to just fall into. I don't think that's how you really
Right. Yeah.
nowadays. So
I'm sure I've read good stuff about the new one. It'll probably be pretty good.
yeah, it's got a great cast.
Got Peter Dinklage in it. Yeah. Yeah.
So with that, we should get to actually rating the movie. Rating. So what we do on the show now for everyone who's listening is that we rate the movies that we talk about now, and we rate them from 1 star being bad to 5 stars being amazing. So for this film, C.H.U.D from 1984, what would you rate the film, Dave?
Well, I'm going to go with a 3 on it. It's I think that it has a lot of shortcomings, but I think that the stuff that it does have, the indie feel, the locations, when you do see the monsters being kind of cool, but they kind of look like fish monsters. I don't know. The actors, so I'm gonna give it 3 stars. It may be a little too generous, but I'm gonna land it with that.
Maybe I'm gonna be a little too generous because I'm gonna give 3.5 stars, mostly because the only fault I really find is when I was a kid, this didn't bother me, but when I rewatched it, the only thing that bothers me is how they shoehorn in the Lauren character, whether she's getting chased by a C.H.U.D whose neck grows for no apparent reason, or she just ends up having to save the day at the end. It just seems like she's out of place, unlike the rest of the characters in the movie. So I would give it 3.5 stars because unlike C.H.U.D 2, or a lot of movies, I'm gonna watch this one again.
You said 3.5 stars.
I said 3.5 stars. I was more generous than you.
I thought you said 5 stars at first, and I was like, all right, well, you really like the film. But sometimes the films you see when you're a kid, like even if it's not a good film, I can see somebody giving like a film that they really liked as a kid, even though they realize it's not a good film, a high rating. Maybe not 5 stars, but yeah. That's hilarious, by the way, when he gets his head cut off, even though it's so dumb.
It's dumb.
It looks so hilarious. And she has that samurai sword.
Yeah, everyone has a samurai sword in their house, don't you know?
Yeah.
All right, Dave. Thank you for joining us on Conversations in Horror. I want to thank you, Dave, for joining me to talk about the movie C.H.U.D from 1984. For everyone out there who's listening, please check out some of our previous episodes. They will be probably as entertaining as us talking about this movie. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow us on all social media aspects and on podcast apps, Spotify, and YouTube, where you can always find every episode. And with that, I want to thank you all for joining us. From everyone here at Something Wicked Entertainment, have a pleasant day. Conversations in Horror is a Broken Lighthouse Pictures production, written, produced, and directed by Kevin L. Powers, executive producer Kelly A. Inoka. All contents and material from this episode of Conversations in Horror is copyright 2025 Broken Lighthouse Pictures.